episode of Badasses in Tech is brought to you by Magic Mind, the productivity drink designed to boost your energy, memory, and focus. I'm your host, Samir Vasavada, and you're tuned in to Badasses in Tech. Today, we're rejoined by Samir Vasavada, Co-Founder and CEO of Vise. Samir is serving on his mission to provide everyone access to financial opportunities. In this episode, Samir discusses Vise's rapid growth, how he's bringing equity to a global market, and why technology is key to helping close the financial access gap.
Yeah, so just a quick recap on what Vise does, because I think that might be helpful kind of going into it. Basically, what we're doing is we're building software for financial advisors to help enable them to grow and scale their practice by delivering their clients the best investment advice. So our system basically helps them analyze the client's investment needs, how much money they have to invest, their goals, their net worth, to build a highly personalized portfolio of individual stocks, bonds, other assets, individually tailored to that client's needs. We then provide the tools to automate the management of the portfolios, active rebalancing, tax loss harvesting, with the icing on the cake, as we call portfolio intelligence, or otherwise intelligence that helps tell the story behind the portfolio. So the way you can kind of think about it is the advisor is the relationship with their client, and everything else is kind of helped done by our software. So we can help support the advisors giving their clients better, more personalized investment advice, and the advisor can focus on their client relationships. But long-term vision is that it helps kind of close the financial access gap. So if you think about the access to investment advice the super rich have and the most sophisticated investors, we want to kind of democratize that for everyone. So level the playing field in the sense that whether you're a $10,000 client versus a $100 million client, you have access to investment advice that can get you closer to kind of accomplishing your goals and closer to financial freedom.
That's so important. And I don't know if it's me personally. I have just become very interested in investments, and I'm also talking to a lot more younger people who they're also trying to figure out this world of investing. And to your point, these are people who fall on just like the regular everyday, more on the maybe $10,000 scale. So what do you think is that? Do you think that there is just more people getting interested in investing, or why are we seeing such an increasing trend in interest here?
Yeah, most wealth is generated by kind of compounded returns, and it's like the biggest wealth generator ever. And for the longest time, people didn't really know that was how you generated wealth. But I think over the last kind of 10 or so years, more and more research has kind of come out to show and has been available to kind of mainstream everyday people that if you invest your money in the markets and you do it in a relatively passive, indexed way, you will be able to generate a significant amount of wealth over time, right? As you kind of start to save towards that. Right. And that wasn't really commonly known by most people. And then if you have the technology layer on top of it, which is, mass distribution of this information, YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and, other places, and then personal financial management apps on top of that, starting to think about Robinhood and Wealthfront and traditional ways to learn about investing, it's become kind of more top of mind for most people. So it plays into this general narrative, though, that although people have all of these resources to learn about it and now realize it's important, they still don't know how to manage their portfolio with all these resources. They still don't know what to do, what path to take. So they need a human that can kind of help guide them, right? Which is why we believe financial advisors are so important and will still continue to be around. And it's also one of the biggest kind of markets in the world because, money is a very emotional thing. And financial advisors are very much like therapists or marriage counselors or, emotionally oriented people to kind of help these clients work out, the life path they need to take.
That's a great way of putting that. And yeah, to your point, I mean, these are people who are seeking advice and counsel for maybe they're having a baby, or maybe they're getting married, or maybe they're trying to buy their first home. And the vastness of those big life changes, if you're doing that on your own, you feel you're very insecure. You're like, am I doing the right thing? Am I talking to the right person? Is this the right area that I should be focused on? Am I the right person to be doing this? So is that something that y'all kind of facilitate as well?
Yeah, I mean, we help the advisor do a better job at that.
Yeah.
We help the advisor, spend less time on the things that they weren't as good at, like building and managing portfolios,
Mm-hmm.
and help them spend more time on things that they're great at that kind of fit into that superpower of theirs, which is managing their client relationships to help them decide when they want to send their kid to college and
Mm-hmm.
how to save for it, or when they should buy that house or that second vacation home, or whatever it might be, and serve as that advisor, not as the person doing all of the grunt work in the
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and you said something, and it resonated with me. And I know you're very much a role model in this notion of non-traditional career paths or non-traditional wealth generation. You have a really interesting story. You and your co-founder really started getting into this work, I believe, 13 when you were going to school. So is there a little bit that you can share about that story and your personal history, really taking this idea, bringing it to life, and not only that, scaling it to what you were talking about earlier, growing it from 5 to now almost 100 and plus. So would love to kind of have you take us down memory lane and share your story with us.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because even the progress we've made now is great, but we've far from won, right? Like we have a
Right.
long, long way to go. I think we're 1% the way there is the reality to it. So it's been a fun journey, through this point. But we we kind of I don't know, some people have a passion to do something, like some people have something they like to do as a hobby on the side, something that excites them. I was kind of one of those rare instances where it was like a calling, like I had nothing else in life I wanted to do other than this, and there was nothing that was going to get in my way, absolutely nothing. And I luckily was able to find Runic. The two of us went to a summer camp together, and we were doing college courses over the summer, and we were both from the Midwest. And there wasn't all too much to do in the Midwest. It was very much not a focus on starting tech companies, and we were like, well, we've got some spare time. Like let's invest our energy into at that point in time it was building apps for small businesses, and let's try and build a lot of apps for small businesses. And we started doing that and found some early success there. And Runic had the opportunity to do some AI research, and we are like, well, what if we applied AI to building apps? And that was our first kind of big startup project. It turned out to have been able to work because of how technical of a problem it was. But it led us into finance. It led us into this idea that it was one of the biggest, most important industries in the world, and that there was very little technology, very little automation that was there to support it. And we had the opportunity to kind of build that. And we are like, well, there's nothing else we should be doing other than building it.
That's amazing. And I can only imagine the maybe challenges, or like you said, it's you and everyone else around you going to school, pursuing maybe college or whatever else they're trying to do, and you're going against the grain. So how was that? Like, were there ever moments where you're like, oh my gosh, am I doing the right thing? Or how was that internal narrative for you throughout this process? What kept you going?
Yeah, I would say that if I didn't keep going through that point in time, I wouldn't have kept going now, right? Because even going through this point, startups are really, really hard, right? You're dealing with so many problems, so many different types of, constant changing issues, setbacks, and you got to have a lot of grit. And if you don't go through shit to begin with, you're not going to kind of be able to put it into perspective. So I'm glad I didn't really give up. I think that there were a lot. I think it's no different than like everyone telling you, look, like this isn't what you should be doing. You should be going to school like everyone else. You should be getting good. You should be, taking the path. Like you're thinking about how much risk you're taking on, and like sometimes, like in order to be successful, you just got to be bet against the consensus and be right. And I think that was kind of the bet I was taking. Like, I'm sure it could have gone wrong. The way I thought about it was, look, if it goes wrong and like none of it works, I will have learned something and I will have been better off for it. And I will have gotten closer to the direction of like knowing what I want to do, which I was pretty certain I knew what I wanted to do. But, for whatever reason, that wasn't the case. I would have been able to validate it or invalidate it. And it was just something fun to do. So.
Yeah. Well, and there's the bonus. I mean, I think that's another thing too. Work is not always fun. And the fact that you not only were able to build this company, do everything kind of, like I said, against the grain, you're enjoying it, you're loving it. And I think that's kind of the ultimate dream. We're all kind of working towards that. So that's awesome. And there was something you mentioned about almost like maybe the secrets of startups. And you have kind of evolved, as I understand, throughout the company's evolution. So has you and your role. Are there any tips or lessons that you've learned along the way that maybe others out there who are interested in building their own startup or getting involved in this industry that they might be able to learn from?
Yeah, I mean, do as much as you can with as little as possible, as early as possible. Um, I think that everyone says to themselves, they believe like, oh, if I had this thing, I would be able to grow this much faster. I would have been able to build this better product for my customer, or I would have been able to, whatever it might be, right? And I think if you put that out of your mind and you focus on just the primary objective, the singular thing you need to be successful, and try and do it with as little as possible, you will be able to get there faster and you'll be able to, you know, do more than you would if you were able to make that excuse to yourself that you needed all of these people and you needed all these resources. Because oftentimes that kind of just slows you down.
Right. Or you kind of chase something that puts you in the completely opposite, direction. For me, that's something I struggle with is okay, there's so many options. There's so many things that I could do. Let me try this one, let me try that one. So I'd love, do you have like a method or a way that you kind of identified no matter what, this is the goal, this is what I have to do, and like this is my direction? I think because of the access of technology, social media, all that stuff, it almost seems like the options are overwhelming in like a debilitating sense. It seems like you have kept your eye on the prize no matter what. So I'm curious, like, how do you identify what that is?
Yeah, it's hard. Basically, the exercise I went through, I did two things, both from a personal standpoint and then also from a business standpoint. And the thing is like I screwed up on this for a long time. I'm probably still screwing up on it, but like we're getting just that much closer to like really, really nailing it. I did it from a business, from a work standpoint. I wrote out, I was like, okay, if Vise is successful in 10 years, like what does Vise need to look like? What are we doing? What are we solving for our customer? What are we working towards? Like, what is the bigger plan? And then in my personal life, I was thinking, okay, like when I'm like 30 years old or 31 or whatever it might be, like what do I want my life to look like in everything, right? And every decision I make, everything I do has to somehow layer up into that thing, right? So if I'm spending time on something that isn't related to, you know, how I want to, like what my North Star is, I probably shouldn't be spending time on that. And like the reality is sometimes the North Star can't change, but it's really important to like, spend the time to really think through what is that North Star that you want. And everything should work into it.
That is something that I think all of us need to learn from, and yeah, it's easy to be, I guess, short term oriented. So the fact that you're constantly thinking, it sounds like 10 years ahead, and always looking forward, it's like a muscle that I don't think a lot of people are flexing or know how to flex. So and me in particular, that's something that you've helped me with. So thank you. I'm learning so much. But kind of on this path of what's next, or this 10-year plan, what is your 10-year plan?
Yeah, for the business, it is like transform investment management, and by doing that, creating a platform that gives all investors, like regardless of age, net worth, criteria, access to all investment classes, all asset classes. So public markets, private markets, crypto, everything, to be able to be to be able to have highly personalized and automated investment advice in a very scalable way. So you can think about it as one platform that's able to manage all assets for all investors, done in a personalized way, at scale for everyone.
That's awesome. And I know you recently moved from the Bay Area to New York. Is that something that is helping you kind of fuel this 10-year plan? What is it about New York? I'm sure there's obvious reasons, but I would love for you to just talk a little bit about that location, especially for those who might be interested in joining the financial industry, maybe even working for Vice next year or in 10 years.
That's funny. You know, like New York is just such a better city than San Francisco. It's like there's great restaurants. It's a bunch of fun. No, but it wasn't actually the reason why. It was because we're building a finance company, a financial technology company, and the financial technology DNA is more so in New York than it is in San Francisco. But I would say that it was a dicey time to have made the decision to move because the pandemic had just hit. I think was how do I put this? Like we weren't really in New York, right? People weren't really in the office. We were all over the place because of kind of the unique circumstances. But I will say, if I had to start a company over again, I wouldn't start it in New York. I think as great as New York is. And the reason why is because San Francisco has a culture around entrepreneurship, whereas New York is very much getting there, but it doesn't have like a singular focus around entrepreneurship and startups. I think that San Francisco has that culture, and more importantly, there's such little to do in San Francisco that you're just constantly focused on your business, and there's no other distractions to get you caught up that presents themselves in New York.
Yeah, that's fair. And it sounds like your experience in San Francisco lended itself nicely to the grit that you have and this, relentless focus, and helped you not only with these entrepreneurial skills, but the tech skills. And then it sounds like you were able to take that and run with it with what you're doing in New York. Tell us a little bit more about your team. And, you mentioned the pandemic. We're still, in my opinion, very much into it. 2.5 years later, I'm reading a bunch of stories around, people getting burnt out. Even I think recently, like C-level executives are starting to just be like, you know what, I'm done with this. But for you and for your company, it seems to be the complete opposite. So I'd love to kind of understand what you think you guys have been doing to set the stage here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely wouldn't say we're the complete opposite in the sense that, like, regardless of the company, I think people will get burnt out in the sense that, like, it's really hard to be working in isolation sometimes, not having all too much exposure to other people every single day. And I think that could kind of take a toll on you. And I think that plus the outrageous financial markets that we've seen without too much of a reason for it has just caused a lot of swirl, this kind of idea of the great resignation, whereas like more and more people are like leaving their jobs, expecting to kind of find something better. And I think that it's really just a byproduct of how hard it is to build a company in this environment and build a culture in this environment when there's just so much uncertainty and there's in some sense a lack of structure. And yeah, it's hard. Like, it's not going to just affect the junior employees, or it's going to affect everyone. It's going to affect the C-levels. It's going to affect the everyone involved.
Yeah. Well, and I think so. 2 points on that. The exercise that you shared with us about really understanding what is it that is driving you, how do I reach that goal that is just weighing on me and my soul. I think everyone needs to do that exercise to avoid maybe getting burnt out as quick, or avoid maybe wanting to make that decision, right, to kind of swirl. So
Yeah, I
I
mean,
just completely forgot. Yeah. I had a second point. It'll come to me.
like you kind of need to know just what game you're playing, right? Like if you're operating without a direction, you're not going to know what to do. And the second you get frustrated, the second you know, have like that adversity and you don't know which direction you're trying to go, then the fact that you have to go through that adversity in order to work towards that long-term goal, because you don't have that direction, you're going to just quit and find that like you can't be successful at anything if you just give up.
Yeah. Well, and that made me remember my second point, which is the isolation piece. So I experience this all the time. There's so many decisions. There's so many thoughts that go into my head every single day. Sometimes I almost allow some of those thoughts to be like fear-based. You don't have someone next to you to say, does this look right? Does this sound right? What does this even mean? It's very much the person. So I could imagine even more people are feeling that burnout because it's just them, and it's really just them trying to figure out, am I doing this right, or am I doing it completely, like am I even the right person to do this? So curious if you have any advice or any words to share for people who might be experiencing that, because I can't imagine I'm alone in that one.
Yeah, I mean, I did our best to kind of create a solve for this within Vise, which we called like a house system. So we built basically mini communities within Vise for no other purpose than, to bring people together. And I think that the challenge, like especially if you look at us like from an evolution standpoint, like we've evolved in communities, right? And like a small group of people, relatively, that can support each other and grow with each other. And the challenge with isolation is it takes away from that community, right? And if you don't have that community, it's so hard to know what to do or how to act, or like how to function. And I think that's what kind of happened is that community dissipated over the last couple of years, and we need to bring it back.
And you're doing that. You're facilitating that, especially kind of thinking about what we were talking about at the beginning, helping build those relationships. So it's crucial, and especially now more than ever, we all need just a little bit of social interaction. And why not go talk to someone who can help you generate your wealth? Makes
Exactly.
sense to me.
Exactly. Makes sense to me too.
Awesome. Well, Samir, it has been wonderful talking with you, and it's a treat for me to be able to have you back on and to hear how things have changed just in such a short amount of time. I know you mentioned you have only kind of scratched the surface. There's still so much left for you and the team to do. So any last words or anything that you'd like to share with us, or ways that people can get in touch or engage with the platform?
No, like if you are interested in learning more or interested in a career option, visit vise.com.
I'm Summer Falgiano, and this is Badasses in Tech. To learn more, check out our website at badassesintech.com and join our community to be the first to know when new episodes drop. This programming is made possible by Growth Stack Media. We're always looking for new guests and sponsors, so if you're interested in getting involved, email us at badassesintech@gmail.com. We appreciate your support. Thanks for listening.